Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our forum with the candidates for Sammamish City Council, hosted by the East King County Asian and Pacific Islander Coalition. My name is Ashwin Rao, and I will be your moderator this evening. Thank you very much to the candidates for making the time to speak with us tonight and answer some of our questions. I should mention at the top that this conversation is being recorded and will be shared to the campaigns to distribute. I also wanted to thank our sponsors for the evening, Indian American Community Services, the Chinese Information and Service Center, the Japanese American Citizens League, and Eastside for All. These organizations are all members of APIC, a coalition of community-based organizations dedicated to providing a collective voice for minority groups on the East Side. We are a nonprofit that does not fund or endorse any candidates. So for the first hour this evening, I will ask questions submitted beforehand by community members that summarize our most pressing subjects. Each candidate will get 2 minutes to answer with a randomized speaking order. I will then ask follow-up questions or move us on to the next topic. At 7:05, we will ask questions that have been submitted by attendees this evening. So if you have a question, please write it in this chat and our team will sort through them. And at 7:20, we will conclude with 90-second closing statements. Okay. So without further ado, let's begin with our opening question. The debates over future growth have revealed some fundamentally different visions for the future of Sammamish on the ballot. The city is rapidly evolving in regards to growth and demographics. Sammamish is now 36% Asian, for example, with that number expected to rise. So as part of your introduction, what makes the city of Sammamish special for you personally? And if you are on the city council next year, what will you be trying to protect as the city changes, and what will you be trying to improve? So to begin, let's have Mr. Yang.
Haha, great. Well, thank you for having me. For those of you who don't know, my name is Lin Yang, and I am have the privilege of being the first person who ever grew up in Sammamish to run for city council. I am a proud graduate of Eastlake High School. I ended up graduating from Eastlake and getting my master's degree from Cornell University, as well as my my bachelor's degree from Cornell University, as well as my master's from Harvard in public policy and government. What makes Sammamish special to me is because this is my hometown, but also because of my personal story of we came here. My mom was a single mom when we moved here, and she was able to afford a house in Sammamish, and this community helped me thrive. It gave me the opportunity when I was in high school to sit actually on city council as a student representative and to start the Sammamish Youth Board, which was our city's first commission that was open to the public. And it was an opportunity to give youth a voice on what the young people in our city wanted. And it brought things like the skate park to the youth of our city. And so that was my first taste of actually being involved in the community and seeing what community organizing and impact could create. And a few years ago, when I came back, I decided when we didn't have a newspaper and I was a journalist for a long time that I started the Sammamish Independent. And over the last 5 years, I've trained over 100 high school students to become journalists in Sammamish. I think what makes the city special is that our residents get together and fill in the gaps of our community. And I think what we need is a city council that also fills in the gaps. And we have a lot of gaps in our community, everything from the lack of a community center to no transit to no businesses for our residents to go to. And I'm committed to filling in these gaps and creating these resources that our community members have been demanding for decades. Thank you.
Yang. Next, we have Mr. Gupta. Oh,
Wow.
sorry.
I should have spoken for a few more minutes to end with that music. That's
All right,
incredible.
go ahead, Mr. Gupta.
Thank you. I'm Sid Gupta. I'm running for re-election to Sammamish City Council, position 3. Thank you so much to APIC for hosting this event. I've been a native plant steward in Sammamish for 10 years. In 2018, I was awarded Volunteer of the Year from the city for my work in habitat restoration. In 2016, I was awarded a Sammy Award for environmental stewardship. I first ran for council in 2023 after 8 years of service on the city's Parks and Recreation Commission. What makes Sammamish special to me is all the opportunities that I've been given to contribute, to meet people. I have experienced so much kindness in this community. I have made such incredible friends on council, in the city, as part of the various community groups and nonprofits that I've worked with. We are so fortunate to live here with the people who are here. And if I were reelected, I would look forward to opportunities to connect people through a community center, giving our residents more things to do, giving our residents ways to stay in their community, whether they're young people looking for ways to afford a house after they come back to college, or an apartment or a condo, whether there are seniors who have grown old in this community and who have outgrown the usefulness of their big houses, and they're looking for ways to stay in Sammamish, even while they can't maintain their large properties. I'm looking forward to continuing our commitments from our big planning documents, whether that's our climate action plan, our transit plan, our transportation master plan, and our comprehensive plan that takes a holistic look at our housing for the first time in our city's history. And we've done a lot of amazing planning work in just 2 years, where we started a sustainability commission, we're a Tree City USA. We've passed a DEIB North Star document that makes sure that our solutions work for everybody. And this foundational planning work is so important, but what I want to work on now is implementation. That means making sure trail connections get built, bus stops get improved, crosswalks are installed, we get more amenities on the plateau, and we get a community center that serves our seniors, our youth, and our nonprofits.
All right, thank you. I think we turned it off now. Next, we have Ms. Lamb.
Thank you. My name's Amy Lamb, and I'm a 30-year resident, and I currently serve as our deputy mayor here in the city. And I want to thank APIC for hosting this event for us. I first ran for council back in 2021, and the main reason I ran was because the council at the time did not reflect the diversity of our community, which is 30%. People of color. And I have been honored to be the first Asian American to serve on council, as well as the first woman of color to serve on our council in our council's 26-year history. Representation is really important to me. I think it sends a very powerful message to people of color, that we have a voice and that our voice matters. The thing that I find really special about our community is that despite our size of 68,000 people, I am still regularly amazed when I go to the store or I go to the library or a park and meet people that I know. And I think that is really kind of a really cool thing, that despite the size of our city, we can still find community in places that we go to. I'm very committed to protecting our natural environment in the future, and I am committed to, much like what Sid was saying, is implementing many of our plans. Many of our plans have not existed in the past, our strategic plans, and I'm ready to put those plans into action, which is why I'm running again. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Amato.
Thank you very much for hosting us tonight. My name is Josh Amato. My wife Jessica and I have called Sammamish home since 2018. Shortly after moving to Sammamish, I joined our local Rotary Club to find volunteer opportunities and later served as president. For the past several years, I've managed the Sammamish Rotary Christmas Tree Lot, which brings in tens of thousands of dollars to fund scholarships for Sammamish students and provides support to the Issaquah Food Bank. I also serve on the board of directors for the Progressive Animal Welfare Society. I care a great deal about our community, and I'm running because I believe government should work for you. But I also believe our council has lost focus, raising taxes without clear priorities, delaying infrastructure improvements through endless planning cycles, and falling short on emergency readiness, as we saw with the bomb cyclone. I'll strive for a government that delivers measurable progress, actively listens, and is responsive. I want a transparent budget with clear priorities and make real progress on infrastructure projects to improve safety and ease congestion. I want to expand opportunities for our families to play, communities to connect, and teens to hang out. I believe the old CWU building should become a true community center with a thrift shop to fund vital human services, a teen center, a senior center, and a performing arts center. We should make more of our parks usable for more of our community, especially during our long, dark, and rainy seasons, by building more turf fields, adding covers and lighting to our pickleball and basketball courts and playgrounds. And we should create pop-up dog parks, just as surrounding communities are doing, because we don't have enough locations where the entire family can play together. I'm standing here today because a teacher in high school, after a difficult childhood where I lost my mom, my dad remarried and got divorced, and I ended up living with my grandma. My life could have easily gone a different direction. That teacher made a call to City Hall and said he had a talented web design student who could make you a better website. They brought me in as an intern, and I later got a full-time job there. I bring this up because last night my opponent, Sid, talked about his idea for City Hall internships. I think it's a great idea. I think it could change lives. It certainly changed mine. And if I'm elected, I'm going to work to make his idea a reality. If he's elected, I'm going to do what I can to help him. If you want more details after hearing from me tonight, you can reach me on my cell phone at 253-722-9089. I hope to earn your vote.
Mr. Motto. Next, we have Councilmember Howe.
Well, good evening, everybody, and thanks for being here. And thank you for this opportunity to talk to folks. So I'm a 35-year resident. I've been here a long time, and it's been an absolute honor and a delight to serve as a council member and as your mayor. So together we have improved roads, added sidewalks, upgraded ball fields, added very stringent, toughest in the state, stringent stormwater standards, and updated critical area ordinances to protect wetlands and wildlife. I'm extremely proud of our climate action plan, our sustainability commission, our transportation and transit master plans, and the housing diversification plan. So I'm running for re-election to continue the progress we've made in less than 3 years. So my vision for Sammamish is that we remain safe and beautiful and welcoming and environmentally and fiscally sustainable for the long term. I'm committed to keeping Sammamish livable with efficient connections to jobs or schools, businesses, parks, nature, open spaces. I'm the council member who pushed the city into adding DEIB or diversity and inclusion into our city's work plan. There's been pressure by other cities to wipe that off their websites. We're not doing that. We are doubling down. We are not backing away from being a welcoming city. So in terms of what I've been excited about with being in Sammamish is the folks I meet. A lot of people will tell you that they love the parks. The parks are great, but it's the people that bring things alive. This morning, I was out walking with kids, the walking school bus to McAuliffe with a bunch of parents and children who eschewed, the car and walked, and they laughed and they talked and they had a blast. And it was fun to eavesdrop on those conversations and to hear how committed the parents and the kids are to sustainability and to serving their community. And that's what makes it worth living here.
Thank you. Last but not least, Mrs. Treen.
Thank you. I'm Debbie Treen, and I'm running for Sammamish City Council Position 7. And I thank all of you for being here and those who watch this coming up. I'm a retired chief financial officer, most recently at the Cornish College of Arts, but I spent 10 years as a consulting CFO working with publicly traded companies, small businesses, and nonprofits. And I found the nonprofits actually to be the most rewarding. I had grown tired of working with for-profit all the time. That is a very pressure cooker place to be. And so I've really enjoyed working with my nonprofits and with the Cornish College. Prior to that, I served on the Bothell City Council for 6 years and was their mayor for 2. I'm going to highlight 2 things I did there. One is acquiring $300,000 worth of parkland sorry, not 300,000, 300 acres of parkland, which was quite a bit more than 300,000, with funds from the conservation futures in both King and Snohomish County, since Bothell crosses that county line. And the other thing was when we were faced with our budget, the normal process back then, the property tax limit was 6%, and the normal process was to simply calculate how much revenue we were going to get and then figure out how to spend it. And I actually, as mayor, pushed forward and passed a restriction of the property tax increase to the cost of living. And somehow we managed to survive despite cutting our revenue. I've spent most of my life in the Northwest. My husband and I moved here in 2010. We bought the home we would want to live in for the rest of our lives. I guess I'm at the opposite end of what Lin Yang is advocating. I live here already and I want to stay here. I don't want to lose the nature that brought us here, the wildlife that we enjoy, and I plan to work to protect the environment as my top priority. I feel like our work right now is falling a little short.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Treen. So we'll begin by discussing the town center, the object on the top of the agenda. The expansion is currently the city council's main thrust in an effort to create more affordable units on the plateau. The latest environmental impact statement released last month suggests lifting the density cap on the town center from 2,000 to 4,000 units. It would allow for 7-story buildings by right with 8.5 stories if the developer adds affordable housing. And it suggests using a simpler form-based code to try and attract more attractive retail opportunities. So, with 2 minutes, could you briefly explain where you stand on those three pillars, the density cap, the height, and the form-based code, and then give your general thoughts about the town center expansion overall? So first up will be Mr. Amato.
Perfect. Thank you so much. From the outset, I'm opposed to going from 2,000 units, which is what the residents have been promised a long time since the town center's creation, that it would be a cap at 2,000 units. You can hear many of the people on this forum talking about how they thought 2,000 was enough and we shouldn't go above it. Many former council members did the same. And I think we should keep that promise to residents. I think that results in a lot of mistrust that people have in government is these sorts of promises that get broken. I think going to 4,000 dwelling units overall is too much for our infrastructure to handle. And to update our infrastructure to handle that many dwelling units, it would be exceptionally expensive, more money than what we have. One of the challenges I have with the EIS that was published is that they use traffic data that counted cars from 2022 when we were still recovering from COVID and many people were working from home. So they've undercounted the amount of cars that were on the road and are claiming that there's not going to be an impact from these new dwelling units. I don't think that's right. And I think that we're operating with this EIS with some bad data and coming to some poor conclusions because of it. I served on the planning commission for 4 years, so I'm very familiar with as familiar as a planning commissioner could be with our town center code. It's exceptionally complex and has resulted in some slowdowns. I think we do need to have an update to make it better, to make the outcomes better for residents, and to make it more feasible for a developer to actually build projects, because it takes way too long and way too many rounds to get a project through the permitting process. So we can make improvements. I'm just opposed to doubling it from 2,000 to 4,000 units. And I think it really breaks a promise that the city's made to residents.
Okay, thank you. Next up, we have Councilmember Howe.
Thank you. Well, I believe we can grow responsibly and preserve our natural environment at the same time. We can't stop growth, but we can certainly plan for it. At this point, we're still in the process of trying to figuring out what that upper limit might look like, because we haven't decided yet. So we're still looking at the data and trying to make good decisions. But actually, Josh made an interesting point about the pace of development, which is extraordinarily slow. It's taken us 17 years to get 320 units. 17 years. That's a very long time. At this pace of development, even if you went to 4,000, you're looking at 55 years to get to that level. So I'm not going to predict where the council is going to land on this, because we all have different opinions and thoughts. I'm interested in increasing the number of homes and different types of homes that we can offer residents in town center, because we need places for folks to downsize to. We absolutely do. You've got Merrill Gardens and Aegis coming in. They're not only just going to provide residents, but not provide traffic, not add to schools, but they will provide jobs. And it would be great if there was a place like an apartment building for those folks to live in who happen to work at Merrill Gardens or Aegis, for example. So the other thing we know about this is that if we do nothing and keep things as they are, we will get a plethora of townhomes, about 1,000, and you will not get the restaurants. You will not get the bookstore. You will not get the cool place to go and have a glass of wine with your friend on a patio. So we need to make some trade-offs and some good decisions based on good data. We have the time to absolutely plan for increasing the number and the types of homes in town center. It's the perfect place to do it on a transit line. And we have the time to mitigate anything that might come up and the funds to do it with the impact fees. Thanks.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Amato, you were mentioned, so I can give you 30 seconds if you have something to say.
Yeah, thank you very much. I just want to note this time to development. We've heard a lot from the sitting council members that it's going to take many, many, many years, perhaps 20 to get to 4,000 dwelling units based on prior performance with development. But that's just, I don't believe that's accurate. There were several years, about 8, where the developer that owns the majority of the land had to acquire the land and put it all together. And then we had COVID, and then there was a lawsuit that slowed everything down for permitting. After a development is permitted, it takes about 3 years, maybe 4, to get it to occupancy. So this idea that it's going to take a long time, I think, is inaccurate. Thank you.
Would you like to respond, Councilmember Howell, or should we really move on? Okay, we can move on to,
We can move on.
yeah. Mr. Yang, you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, I want to respond to the notion that we have to stick to a promise that was made 20 years ago. Conditions on the ground change, and 20-year-old plans don't necessarily reflect reality today. And what is the reality today? Well, home prices are much more expensive today than they were 20 years ago. And we've effectively become a community that's priced out almost everyone except people who work in the tech industry these days. So let me give you a few examples. Number one, our teachers cannot afford to live in Sammamish. In my old high school, Eastlake, 10 out of 125 teachers, only 10 live around this area. The rest commute an hour and more to teach our children. Our firefighters and police can't afford to live here. In fact, I have both of their endorsements, and their number one issue was housing, not funding or equipment. It was housing, right? And that just shows you how much the situation has changed in the last 20 years. And then also, when one of the doors I knocked was my 10th grade, biology teacher. She's 80 years old now. And and I was great to see her. But when I left, she told me, Lynn, can you make sure that town center gets built? And can you make sure that senior assisted living facility gets in there? Because I'm going to need it in the next 10 years, right? And we have this critical need for our aging population that I absolutely want to serve, because these are the very seniors who raised me when I was a teen here in the community. So I think the situation has changed, as well as state law has changed. Now there are strict requirements that every community need to meet for housing. And I want to make sure that we update the plan so that we can realistically actually build the housing that we promised. I want to remind everyone here that 1,100 units of affordable housing is in our comprehensive plan. And that comprehensive plan was unanimously passed by every single member on Sammamish City Council. And so we need a realistic plan to actually produce that 1,100 units of affordable housing, because if we don't update it and it's not realistic, the state's going to come after us. And the state now has the power to approve building permits without our consent after a law that was passed this year. So conditions change, and I think we need to update those conditions to meet both legal requirements as well as the needs of our community.
Thank you. Next, we have Mrs. Treen.
Thank you. Yeah, I support the town center as it was originally adopted with 2,000 units. There's a number of reasons for that, and I'm not going to repeat the items that Josh stated, but I believe today trust has been broken, because if it weren't for a tremendous pushback from the community, our city council would have already adopted a updated sub-area plan for the town center for 4,000 units and would be on the cusp of adopting the code amendments to support it. That was the timeline shared with the public last fall. The expectation was that this would all be buttoned up before the election. The community had to force the council to slow down and consider the impacts of what they were proposing. Remember, the original proposal was to adopt 150-foot height limits. If it hadn't been for the community rallying against it, I wonder if that would still be on the plate. I'm a realist when it comes to development and housing. First, I think subsidizing and incentivizing a for-profit developer is probably the most expensive and least effective way to achieve affordable housing. I know our comprehensive plan establishes multiple locations and levels, including the town center, so we should take a second look at the various strategies we have to meet the mix that's required. I'm going to highlight a couple other things. Form-based code. I worked for a client in Bellevue who rezoned their property based on form-based code. And I'm not going to name names, but if you saw what was built there now compared to what they sold the city council when it was adopted, you would be horrified. It completely blocks the view of adjacent neighborhoods to the downtown core. So I don't have a good feeling about form-based code. I will be very skeptical of being able to adopt something that will actually yield what we want. Last, I would just say that it's really a matter of trust, and I am concerned that we have violated it.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Gupta.
Thank you. Talking about height first, I believe the proposal is raising 10 feet on the western side of 228th. Otherwise, it's the same height as is currently allowed. In reference to the 15-story height limit that was considered, that was brought up to council. All 7 council members said, yes, let's look at it, because the idea is you would trade open space for limiting your built footprint, right? And the community, that was why we were interested. The community said, we don't want to go in that direction. And we didn't pursue it any further. It wasn't in the scope of the SEIS. Speaking of the SEIS, the original town center plan did say, when we reach a certain percentage of build out, take another look, because everyone knows conditions change and we need to update the plan to reflect the truth now. As far as density, I would like to really emphasize, if we do nothing, if we stay with the 2,000 housing units, which is the existing cap, we did an economic analysis from the city to understand what the developer is likely to build. They make the most profit on townhomes. So the 950 units that are yet to be built or permitted in town center today, they are legally allowed to do that, would be townhomes. For scale, that is 20 times the scale of the Brownstones West development that is currently under construction north of Lower Commons Park. And personally, I really struggle to consider that the best outcome for our community, especially with the affordable housing requirements that we have. Why would we not consider putting our increased density in our town center, which is meant to be our urban core? If we don't put it there and we allow 950 townhomes to be on that same built footprint, we're not preserving any more space by doing that. Then we have to find other locations to deliver affordable housing. And as has been mentioned, the state is really looking to deliver housing, not just put it on a plan. They are going to check every year to measure our progress. And I would highlight Mercer Island was deemed out of compliance with their plan, and they're often used as a comp for our community.
Thank you. And Councilmember Land.
Thank you. So I support expanding the town center because it is the most responsible and sustainable way to grow. Our comp plan shows that we need to accommodate 2,100 housing units. 1,400 of them is in the deepest level of affordability, and those are apartments and condos. And the state has provided guidance that the best way to accommodate those is through apartments. The SEIS is very clear. It says without town center expansion, the 2008 vision of town center would not be realized, and it would be unlikely for us to meet our GMA obligations for affordable housing. So there are people here today that do not want town center expansion. I could just play out for you what would happen if town center did not expand. That means, like people have said here today, we would get townhomes and there would be very limited commercial. It also means that nearly 2,100 units of affordable apartments and condos would be pushed out of town center. And where would those go? People may think it could go into our mixed-use centers already, which is Inglewood, Pine Lake, and Kohani, but that is highly unlikely because one owner owns all 3 of those areas, and he has no incentive to redevelop I've lived here for 30 years, and the only thing I have seen change in those developments is a new paint job. So that would push all those 2,100 units onto our bonus parcels, which are city-owned, county-owned, and religious-owned parcels. And there's 14 of them. They're up and down 228th. And that would mean if we built on those bonus parcels, it would make transit less likely. It would definitely increase congestion, and it would negatively impact the environment, and definitely less revenue for the city because we wouldn't get the commercial spaces that we want.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Lynn. Yeah, so several candidates have mentioned the GMA requirement about building 2,100 affordable units in Sammamish by 2044. So we'll give each of you 90 seconds to answer this next question. If you don't think the town center expansion should be doing the heavy lifting for this obligation, what is your vision for getting those units built over the next 20 years? And if you do think the town center is the right approach, would you support, as Mr. Yang has said in previous places, raising the affordability requirement from 10% of units to 20% of units? So we'll begin with Mr. Gupta.
So I do think it makes sense to consider town center for increased density as we strive to meet our affordability requirements. I cannot say whether raising the mandatory affordability rate is the right way to go because there's a balance to be found between requiring affordability to get that outcome and stifling development altogether. I don't know that we have done the analysis to understand. I think that's part of the process that we're going through. That's why we did the SEIS. That's why we made it such a public process, because we want to understand the impacts, the mitigations, and the economic conditions that are going to result in the delivery of housing, right? It could be some combination of tools. It could be a 15% requirement along with a multifamily tax exemption. It could be a transfer of development rights program that preserves even more of our spaces while concentrating development and placing conservation easements on parcels that need to be protected around our city. I think that is the work and the challenge is finding that balance of the limited tools that the city has. It could be that the city provides land. That is one thing the city can do for that those lower bands of affordability, because the city does not provide housing. But if we can provide land, then we can partner with nonprofit developers. We also, with our existing 10% requirement, we have a fee in lieu program. That money goes into a fund managed by Arch and is held specifically for projects for those lower AMI bands.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Amato.
Yeah, thank you. And I want to highlight right here, this robust discussion we're having with different viewpoints is not something that happens right now on the council dais where the votes are 6-1. We have a lot of groupthink. If we have some balance in the council, we're going to end up with a lot better ideas because we can, have a good dialogue and fight it out. And I think that sort of thing needs to happen. I want to address something about the requirement to build housing. There's no requirement to build it. There's a requirement to plan for it and enable it to happen. The city is not building any housing. Developers build housing, whether they're for-profit or nonprofit developers. The comp plan and the comparison to Mercer Island is inaccurate. The city won an award from FutureWise for the comp plan. It is not at all the same situation. The comp plan identifies locations where we can accommodate the 2,100 affordable units. And in the comp plan, it has the town center at 2,000, not at 4,000 to hit our affordability number. So this whole argument is kind of a fallacy on that point. And also, we're going to have infill development, whether we upzone the town center to 4,000 units or not. A private property owner in a neighborhood like mine isn't going to give up his new right to build a fourplex or duplex simply because the town center went up. They're going to sell their land for as much money as they can if they want to retire and move out, or if they want to downsize and live in one of the units. So don't believe this idea that the town center is going to remove the infill development that's going to come in. You're going to end up with both.
Mr. Yang.
Yeah, I want to respond to what Josh said, and then I will talk about affordable housing requirements. That's actually incorrect. The state passed a Housing Accountability Act that specifically says that cities need to make meaningful progress towards actually building the housing. And every year they're going to pick 10 cities to audit. And if that housing is actually not getting built, then they will rule the city out of compliance. And there are a suite of tools that the state will deploy to make sure that the city gets back into compliance. Those tools range from withholding sales taxes to withholding transportation budget to kind of the nuclear option, which is the builder's remedy, in which any builder can submit a permit to the state and the state will approve it as long as that building has meets certain affordable housing requirements. They can approve a building irrespective of our zoning laws anywhere in the city, as long as it's not in a close to a critical area. And so the screws are on, right, for our communities to actually meet those requirements. And in fact, for Mercer Island, they looked at their comp plan and deemed that it was not adequately provisioning affordable housing. So they sniffed Mercer Island's lie, right? And they're basically deeming them out of compliance and still sniff out ours too if we don't adequately provision. On the affordable housing front, I actually do think, yeah, we can increase the requirement. In fact, we can match the level that the state has mandated in the builder's remedy to make sure that we're getting the best deal possible out of the developers, including potentially a 20% affordable housing requirement, because that is all the state's requiring for the builder's remedy. And if we match that, then the developer can either go with us or go with that, and they don't have a better option.
Sure. Yeah, Mr. Amato, you can have 30 seconds to respond, and then I'll give Mr. Yang 30 seconds to rebut. So, yeah.
Thank you. This is fun. So I'd encourage Mr. Yang to read the HB 1220 handbook that Commerce put together. It's wonderful bedtime reading. In there, they do talk about exactly what he discussed, but it has nothing to do with if homes are actually built. What it has to do with is if our development code is prohibitive in their ability to build. So if we have code in place that stops someone from building their duplex or fourplex or makes it impossible for the town center developer to build his on his property, the density amount is not that. That's not zoning, or that's not development code.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Yang, 30 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah.
Josh is a good friend of mine, so this is friendly banter. Josh, I would encourage you to read Senate Bill 5148, which actually just passed and went into effect in July, that had the exact provisions that I outlined. And I would also encourage you, Josh, and anyone else who doesn't believe in this, to read the ruling that the Growth Management Hearing Board made for Mercer Island, deeming that that Mercer Island's comprehensive plan does not make, in exact words, adequate provisions for realistically achieving those housing targets. The state wants to make sure that all goals are realistic and the housing can actually happen and their incentives are in place. Housing accountability, that's the name of the act. That's what we have to do. We have to be accountable to our people to actually produce the housing that we promised.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Howe, I'll give you 2 minutes since they've had some time.
Thanks. I am interested in seeing what our capacity could be for adding more affordable units, certainly into town center. For one thing, I really do think that will help our argument for getting more transit there. Right now, of course, we're in a transit desert, and I'm on the regional transit committee right now, and I'm actually sending a letter to Councilmember Marone about our lack of transit, and in particular, as we look ahead to the World Cup. So I've got like 11 mayors signed on to this letter to try to force the issue, because we get left behind on the east side. But to speak to the percentage of affordable, I mean, I believe Redmond is going with about a 20% affordability bar for developers to hit. And I worried about that and wondered about that for them, but they're different because they're a transit center and they've got light rail. So I think they're going to be able to be okay with a 20 or so target for themselves. I'm not sure that we would be successful doing that. For one thing, we don't actually have a great reputation with the building community, because they've found that they've been stymied for some of their projects, and there's been lawsuits and issues. And so actually encouraging the right kind of development and building in our community is going to be a bit of a challenge to a certain extent. So I do believe in having incentives to bring in the right kinds of developers to do the right kinds of housing here in Sammamish. I'm not convinced that it's going to be a 20% affordable though yet.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Treen.
Thank you. A lot of what I would have said has been said, so I'm not going to repeat. I probably won't take 2 minutes. I do want to say that the 150-foot vote was not a 7-0 vote. It was a 6-1 vote, as many of these decisions have been. The builder's remedy, there was a pretty good discussion of this, I think at the last council meeting or maybe a couple ago, where the consultant actually let us know that it's a real thing, but there is a process, and the city would have ample time to correct problems if for some reason we weren't compliant. They don't jump from 0 to 100 degrees in all in one leap. I don't think our comp plan is comparable to Mercer Island, uh, mainly because we were awarded and they were challenged, so it clearly isn't. We act like the the market situation that we're in today is the market situation we're going to be in forever, and we better do something about it right now. The reality is interest rates are going to go down at some point, or maybe they'll go up. We don't know what the market's going to do to our values. It's not likely that they will go down significantly, but we have been in a dip before. That's when we moved to Sammamish, was 2010, when the market for real estate died. So I think this is a little bit of a knee-jerk reaction to say we have to do this and we have to do that. No, we need to be thoughtful. We need to give ourselves some time to really adjust and think about the impacts of what we're doing and not jump into something that we can't get out of. This idea of, I loved all the mitigation that Sid mentioned. I've spoken with Sid before about that. But I really think until those things are codified and defined and clear, I cannot support an increase in the town center because I don't believe that those will be enacted and will be effective.
Thank you. Councilmember Lamb.
So I think it's pretty clear that we all understand that the city does not build. We plan for it, we have to plan to accommodate it, and we have to enable it. And so by increasing the capacity that allows us, it allows the developer to build more affordable because there is nothing left in the bonus pool. There are no more TDRs. And so the only way he can build more affordable units beyond the 200 that he's allowed to build is through incentives. Building affordable housing is incredibly complex. You need government subsidies. You need, that's both federal and state subsidies. You need incentives. And so by offering more incentives, there can be less reliance on subsidies. You know, developers that cobble together to build affordable, there could be like up to 10 funding entities. And if any one of them drops, you are unable to build, which is why incentives are so important and to rely less on subsidies. So I guess I don't need my 2 minutes.
That's perfect. Okay. Yeah, so on the subject of development, I think perhaps the main concern residents expressed in the questions was about traffic, especially on 228th Avenue. So we'll perhaps go for 90 seconds on this. What are some of the short and long-term operational reforms or capital investments that would be necessary to manage the current levels of congestion and then the future levels of congestion? So we'll start with Mr. Amato.
And how long do I have?
90 seconds.
Okay. So short term, I think we really need to do some work along 228th East Lakes and East Lake Sammamish Parkway to increase safety for residents. Those roads are fast. It's hard to turn left out of East Lake Sammamish Parkway. Same with out of 228 for many of those neighborhoods with uncontrolled intersections and pedestrians trying to get around. So that needs to be improved right now. The council's in the process of going through a big plan on what 228 could look like in the future. But it's going to take a while. I think we can make some mitigations now to make life better for residents. Long term, the biggest thing we can do is work with neighboring jurisdictions. So WashDOT and King County, improving 202 down at 202 and Sahalee Way. WashDOT had at some point planned a roundabout there to increase throughput, and that's where a big bottleneck is. That needs to get done realistically in order to help throughput in there. And I mean, there's the big topic for 30 seconds left. But East Lake Sammamish Parkway, that's another challenge because we have very limited right of way to um, improve things. And I think the best thing we can do there is mainly help residents get in and out of their location safer. And that's one of the challenges with going to 4,000 dwelling units and not actually studying the appropriate amount of traffic. We can't actually truly plan for the impacts without doing so.
Councilmember Howe.
Thank you. So people do complain about traffic a fair amount, and traffic concerns are real. It's how people experience traffic when they have a car in front of them and they're late to their appointment, for example. So from my point of view, there are different things that we can do to make things better. And some of them can be very inexpensive. So in terms of just our intersections, being able to make sure all of our intersections stay as efficient as possible, but with whatever technology we can add that will actually increase throughput. I believe with our Sahalee study, for example, we'll be looking at different recommendations that will be coming through that not only will increase safety for anybody that's in a vehicle, a bus, a bike or pedestrian, but in protecting the slope that is just geologically difficult. So shoring that up, which will be expensive, but very important to do. So by adding a couple of roundabouts along 228th, by adding some what's called a wolf signal so that people can cross safely with some kind of light system, by adding crosswalks where we need to add them, by potentially slowing down our speed limit to closer to 35 versus 45, our throughput will be enhanced and will relieve some of the traffic pressure. And then I'm really hoping that Sid will be talking about transit because that is our next best bet.
Great, thank you. Mr. Yang, unfortunately, that's where the spin went.
I'll talk about transit. I'll talk about transit. Well, and Sid can back me up here if I miss anything. But at the end of the day, I just want to remind people that Sammamish actually doesn't have a plan to cut traffic by 50% by the year 2050. And if we want to achieve that goal, we got to start now. And the only way you can take cars off the road, truly, right, is with transit. And so I think the town center development will help because once you have the density, you can go back to Metro and actually justify both a transit center and frequent bus service every 10 to 15 minutes down 228th. And just imagine what benefit that will actually create for our entire community. When you have a bus stopping in front of your neighborhood every 10 minutes, that would make it more likely for you to want to get on. It would certainly make it more likely for our high school students who may have missed their school bus to just take the regular bus and get to the high schools, which are conveniently all located on 228th. One of the things that I'm really passionate about is connecting more of our neighborhoods to transit. So let's give you an example. There are many neighborhoods in Sammamish that are 2 miles from 228th and Sahalee Way, and they have no real way of getting to the bus. What I really want to do and what a lot of council members share with me is actually starting a community shuttle system, similar to what Snoqualmie Valley has, that can take people from the entrances of their neighborhoods and get them directly to the light rail or the Issaquah Transit Center. I do also believe that we, in the short term, need to improve 228th and Sahalee Way all the way up to the northern border. And I would want to see road improvements that not only increase throughput, but also make it safer for bikers and pedestrians. Because bikes and pedestrians are all part of our transit and transportation plan. And if people can use those modes of transportation, they're less likely to drive, and that's what we all want.
Thank you. Councilmember Lamb.
So the focus of transportation in Sammamish, I believe, will definitely need to focus on getting people out of cars. The city is focused on a multimodal transportation system, which includes bus service, adding more sidewalks, bike paths, and we have a bike and pedestrian plan that we're working on, and we adopted a transit plan. And I am really happy that we have doubled our sidewalk funding to $2.4 million over the next 6 years to get people out of their cars and to walk more. I think town center is going to have a huge is going to be a huge reason for bringing transit to Sammamish. Town center has the density that it needs, and what I think would be really remarkable, and this is I think there's quite a lot of support that if we were to be able to build out town center, that Metro would bring rapid ride to Sammamish. And I think that's the challenge, where people don't want to take transit because it just takes too long to get anywhere. And so if we had rapid ride come to Sammamish, it would pick up at town center. It could go directly to the Marymore station. It could go directly to the Highlands. And I think that would be a very viable way for our city to get improved transit service.
Thank you. Mrs. Treen.
Thank you. Yeah, I understand the benefits of density when it comes to transit and walkability, but the reality is Sammamish has a lot of hillsides. It's troublesome topography and terrible weather, and we don't have any freeway access directly in the city. So even transit is going to be stuck in the traffic that's going on the edge of our cities. I do think it's important for us to work with our adjacent jurisdictions, and that's both Redmond, Issaquah, and WashDOT. But in the preliminary conversations and just coffee table conversations I've had with those folks, um, it's they're not really interested in making it easier for more Sammamish to bring more traffic into their communities. They struggle with the same traffic problems we have. So to actually enable Sammamish to put more traffic into Redmond or more traffic into Issaquah is not necessarily desirable. So I think even with the most aggressive transit plans, they typically show a maximum of 10% ridership, which means 90% of our trips are still going to be in vehicles, and we need to plan for that.
Thank you. Last but not least, Councilmember Gupta.
Yeah, thank you. I would agree. Safety is incredibly important. That's why we're doing a bike and pedestrian mobility plan so that we can identify the gaps. We can make sure that our high priority spaces are connected, particularly around schools, right? The worst of our traffic problems are at school pickup and drop off. So if we can get kids to walk and bike, that really helps alleviate those problems. Adding lane miles, especially on our main arterials, is ruinously expensive. I was horrified when I learned how expensive it is in Sammamish. So even if we stick with 2,000 units in the town center, that's still 1,000 more townhomes coming, right? We need to plan for that traffic. And the most efficient way that we can do that is transit. Our transit plan is fantastic. We talk about neighborhood circulator shuttles because we identify only 1 out of 7 people in Sammamish live within walking distance of our existing bus corridor. We have neighborhood shuttles. The idea is they go on loops, just constant loops in the neighborhoods to get you from where you are to that main bus corridor so you can connect to our town center, so you can connect then using a Metro bus to light rail or Issaquah. There's an idea of just a straight shuttle that goes from the northwest corner of town center to Marymore Light Rail Station, just goes back and forth. We have Metro Flex, which is great. It's like Uber funded by Metro. I would really encourage you to try that out. There are some limitations in terms of time and footprint, but it's great. 269, which is our existing bus route, with the opening of light rail over to Seattle, is slated to get better headways, 15 minutes instead of 30 minutes, plus nights, plus weekends. Improvements are coming. That's the best way we can plan.
Thank you. All right, and folks, audience, please continue asking your questions in the chat. We will ask one more question that was pre-submitted and then go to the comment section. But we will spend 2 minutes on the subject of fiscal sustainability, specifically this 6% utility tax that is set to take effect in January. The city manager has said that park development, human services funding, sustainability initiatives, and city commissions could be eliminated, and street maintenance and permit processing could be curtailed without new revenue. Opponents say that the tax was passed without enough resident input, and more effort should be made to eliminate ineffective services before raising taxes. Proponents say that we are the only Eastside city that doesn't have a utility tax yet, and it was the best option from their menu of options. So where do you stand on the subject of the utility tax and on the question of raising revenue versus service reductions more broadly? So we'll start with Mr. Amato.
Thank you for that question. The question on taxes generally, I am not supportive. Um, I don't support or oppose a tax just on its face. There's a lot that goes into it. I think taxes are the price that we pay to live in a great community. But I think more work needs to be done before we levy taxes on our residents and in a more transparent manner. I the services you mentioned could certainly have been reduced had this utility tax not been put in place. But I think there's probably a whole host of other things that could have been dropped ahead of those. And that work wasn't done. And the work I'm talking about is where you put every expense the city's going to have in a priority bucket, and then you choose to not fund the nice to haves or ask residents to fund those ones that are not critical. Some of those things that were mentioned in the could be cut if we don't implement the utility tax are high ticket and very important items to our community. I am positive that there are other lower ticket items that could have been on the chopping block and probably less desirable to more residents. I think it's important that we have a instead of a committee of the whole where all the council members are always together, is a budget committee on the council where they can really dive into the details and look on the consent agenda where every single expense is there. Right now, the council just goes and approves the consent agenda with every single expense. I think we need a budget committee on the council that looks at all those expenses and categorizes them and really takes a sharp look at things, because we're in a budget crunch. We can't just rubber stamp whatever comes out of staff. We need to do the work for the residents to make sure their taxes are being spent appropriately before we ask them to pay more in taxes. The last thing I want to do is create a citizen budget review committee where they can look at the work of the council. And we got a lot of smart people in Sammamish, and they might find things that we miss, just like the planning commission does. A budget review committee can do the same thing, and I think we should have that.
Thank you. Mr. Gupta.
Thank you. Our budget has a structural imbalance. We are not unique in Sammamish. Every city in the state is facing this issue. 63% of our revenues in the city come from residential property tax. And just for reference, the property tax that you pay, 1 out of 7 of those dollars come to the city, right? And we are limited in how much we can raise that. We can only raise that 1% per year, and that's not the rate, that's the amount of money we collect. For reference, that was about $300,000 in our last budget. At the same time, our police costs went up 8%. Our fire costs went up 15%. Together, those make up over half of our operating budget. And I think we would all agree public safety is hugely important, right? That is part of what makes Sammamish such a great place to live. And if we cut to provide those services, you have to cut every year because those costs are going to continue to rise. This is a structural imbalance. It is not cutting one-time costs. And we did that work. We did. Not required, but highly valued services. Park and open space acquisition and development, recreation, human services funding, sustainability initiatives, communications, passport services, lifeguards, public art funding, city commissions, streetlight operation. In addition, those are all cut. Those are not reduced, those are cut. In addition, we would also have to consider reducing streets maintenance, which is snow and ice removal, vegetation management, litter patrol. That's pavement preservation, that's inspection services, that is code enforcement and permit processing, that's parks maintenance, that's vegetation management, that's park restrooms, and that's administration. All of that would have to be under the chopping block because of the scale of this imbalance, right? I understand that there is a feeling we can cut, but you have to cut and you have to keep cutting. Sammamish has 1.88 full-time employees per 1,000 residents. The next closest comparison is Kirkland with 4.15. Our general fund spend is $859 per capita. The next closest comparison is Mercer Island at $1,384. Issaquah is at $1,679. Redmond is at $1,754. We run a very lean ship. So when you talk about cutting, you're not cutting fat, you are cutting services. So we need to be very clear about which services you're proposing to cut to bridge this gap.
Thank you. Councilmember Howe.
Well, correct, because by law, cities have to provide things like city clerk, permitting, safety. We don't have to provide parks. So we could cut parks and cut the maintenance. And that's the type of thing that we're looking at, because when we originally looked at that budget, by we, I mean the city staff cut the budget by $8.9 million. So they did their drastic cut to take it down to the bone. And I believe there's a member here actually that was part of the Financial Sustainability Commission that even recommended doing the utility tax. Now, the utility tax, while not awesome and not great, and I wish we didn't have to do it because I have to pay it too. What it does do is we don't have a death by 1,000 cuts. We are making a couple of significant changes to the way that we do our budgets and still holding money in reserve, which is important, so that we are able to not only function, but get onto a glide path that takes us years into the future. The utility tax does that for us. The next thing that does that is a Metropolitan Parks District, which in this case, residents will have the opportunity to vote on if they want to participate and want us to move the parks into a Metropolitan Parks District for funding. That takes it out of our budget. That doesn't mean we increase our budget. That means we maintain a low level, but it does allow the parks to blossom and grow in the way that they should going forward. So this is prudent, smart, and extraordinarily transparent financial management.
Thank you. Councilmember Lamb.
Thank you. Both Karen and Sid had some very excellent remarks. I will just add that in 2024, we cut $2.4 million from our general fund. In the next biennium, 2025 through 2026, we reduced it by $8.9 million. And we did not cut the level of service because we did a community survey and people highly value the services that the city offers. Just like what Karen said, we don't want to cut parks. We are legally required to have services like fire and police. And I don't think people want services or even any sort of reduction in services to our fire and police services. While we're talking about our budget, I think it's really important to understand that we need to diversify our revenues. And that includes, our town center, which will add revenue to our city coffers. It definitely needs more commercial. And I also support that the city offer bonds for the first time. Our city has never offered a municipal bond. And for large capital projects, I think it's time that we do that so that the bonds can be paid over time and it can be paid by future residents and not just holding our current residents to pay off.
Thank you. Mr. Yang.
Yeah. Josh is probably going to laugh when I say this, but when I hear him talk, the image of Elon Musk comes to mind in applying a Department of Government Efficiency in Sammamish. And you guys know what happened with that. He went in, decided to see where to cut, and he ended up not even reducing the budget and not being able to find where to cut because the government actually runs pretty efficiently, right? In many places. And I think you'll find that in Sammamish as well, because in Sammamish, we run as Sid said, the lowest per capita budget in the region. In fact, our budget is actually comparable to rural communities, right? I think most people are actually asking, okay, can the city offer us more services, right, that are comparable to other cities with similar incomes and similar, caliber of people living in them, right? Our youth definitely want a community center funded, for instance. So I don't think like taking a government efficiency approach for Sammamish is going to yield a lot of significant incomes. That said, I absolutely agree. We have to diversify our revenues. Our city is almost 63% reliant on property taxes. That is 3 to 4 times higher than any other city in the region. And we only collect 10% of our budget in sales taxes, which is less than a third of what Redmond collects in sales taxes. And so there you see where the imbalance lies. And if we could actually create more businesses and have our residents shop in our local businesses instead of subsidizing the businesses of other cities when we go to Redmond and Issaquah, we'd actually provide more revenue opportunities, right, for our city and have the option to not increase property taxes or utilities taxes in the future. I want to make one comment on the utilities tax, which is a suggestion that I had that wasn't adopted that I wish it was, which is if we're going to go big on our utilities tax, let's actually think about how we can tie it to our climate action goals. There are certain utilities that produce more emissions than others. I'm thinking natural gas versus electricity. And we should really think about how we can structure the utilities tax to actually incentivize cleaner energy sources and the use of cleaner energy sources. So I would have wanted to make adjustments there. But on overall, if we don't diversify our revenues, then the only way we can cover our expenses is to continue to tax our residents. And I don't think that's sustainable in the long run. So I understand why we need the utilities tax, but diversifying the revenues long term is the way to go.
And Mrs. Tree.
Thank you. I'm feeling a little bit like someone from Missouri right now, meaning that I just show me where these savings have been taken in the budget. I know we have heard these statistics multiple times, but um, I think there was a misunderstanding of what that task force actually was asking the council to do. I am the unnamed person in the room who actually was on the fiscal sustainability task force in 2023. And when we read our charge, it was to evaluate this structural deficit and come up with a plan for the city to work its way out of it. But in the end, we weren't allowed to look at expenses. They were given to us. We weren't allowed even to evaluate the existing sources of revenue. We were given a menu of about 25 new potential sources of revenue to evaluate. And from that task force and that list, we decided that the utility tax was the best option, mainly because it generated the most money. And rather than die by a million cuts of more taxes, having to force people to accept this tax and that tax and this tax and that tax. We wanted to settle it down to just one or two items that would solve the problem. The utility tax was one, and the other was the Metropolitan Park District. Those are both recommended with the caveat that expenses be reduced by $1 million over 3 years. And when we talk about the reduction of $1 million, that is a reduction from the 2022 expense level that we were working with. So when the council says they've cut 8 million, I don't think they've cut 8 million since the 2022 budget. I will go back and verify that because it keeps getting said and I need to understand it. It's important that we have a long-term, formal, reliable forecast to work with. And I would recommend reconvening the Fiscal Sustainability Task Force to do some more work on this very subject.
Thank you. So now we'll go on to questions asked by the attendees this evening. If you have questions, you can keep adding them to the chat. But we've gotten many questions from our nonprofits and residents who are very excited by the Central Washington University facility and what could be done with the space. So let's give you guys 1 minute each. What are one or two of your must-have priorities that you would want to include in the facility, and how do you envision that facility operating and financing itself? So let's start with Councilmember Lamb.
I don't think you're going to find much disagreement here. I think we all want the Building 120 to be up and running, and we've been hearing a lot of great ideas from people in the community. I would love to see a permanent place for our seniors. I've been to the Issaquah Senior Center, and it's remarkable what they have. You know, it is a place that they can really call home. They can leave their games out, and people can show up for lunch. They have a kitchen. I would love to have that in the 120 building. I would love to have on the teen years a teen space as well, much like the garage. I think that a true community center, this has been brought up before. I think I definitely support the YMCA, but I think that it's cost prohibitive for a lot of people. So I think among those three things, I think we could really create a vibrant space. The cost of remodeling the 120 building is going to be really expensive, and I would definitely support a capital bond for this. I think that just makes sense.
Councilmember Howe.
So to piggyback on that for a second, community centers never break even. They're always expensive, but they're so necessary for the community. So what I think probably makes the most sense is to put it into the Metropolitan's Park District, because that would be a way potentially to find revenue so that we could support, say, a bond measure, for example. So uh, the building is not great in its current state. I think we need to have a significant 10-year plan that shows that this is how we could use it today and this is how we could use it in 5 years. There's enough property, like in my perfect world, I'd start over and make it purpose built for our community so that it could service teens like the teen garage in Issaquah or seniors. And the community in general, and to have maybe workforce housing above. So it's one of those few places on the planet that the city actually owns the land and could take advantage of. So I see it as a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. Mrs. Treen?
Thank you. Yeah, this is one area where I think we're going to find a lot of agreement in this group. We all think that there are many public facilities that could be a very big benefit for us from Central Washington. I was so disappointed that Sammamish is not going to pursue becoming a college town, because Bothell, the amount of benefit that University of Washington Branch campus has brought to Bothell cannot be measured. It has just transformed that town, and it would have had the same effect here, but unfortunately that wasn't meant to be. So I think one of the things I would ask for, I support all of the ideas that are coming up for this use. One thing I would like to see is a more public process about it. I know there are many groups having conversations, and it would be nice to have an open discussion at some point soon.
Thank you. Mr. Yang?
Yeah. I actually believe that there's things that we can do to the building now to open it up to the community immediately, right? Let me just give you two examples. I don't think you need a lot of foresight and planning to open up the space for seniors and teen programming, right? All you need is rooms, some equipment that works, and some furniture, right? And you can have incredible teen center and senior center space operating right there. So I would prioritize those. I would prioritize letting the community actually rent or book the gym for community events. It's already there. It's plug and play. You can just go in. We're already doing it with Chinese New Year, for instance, and we can open it up for many more events as well. Open up the space within the next 6 months to a year, have a booking system in place, and start bringing in some key organizations that are already providing services like IACS, as well as the Issaquah Team Garage in Issaquah, to see how they will utilize the space. I do think that long-term 10-year plan of what goes in, whether it's a thrift shop or a climbing gym, that can be public, but there's needs today, right? There are needs today, and we can definitely open up that building rather than leave it for storage or leave it empty right now. I think it's a terrible use of space if we don't open it up in the next 6 months to a year.
Thank you. Councilmember Gupta?
Yeah, this is super exciting. A community center, we have heard so many groups expressing the dire need for ways to come together in Sammamish. Right, Mayor Howe and I went down to the Teen Garage. What an amazing facility. They provide amenities. I think our young people deserve more amenities than are available in the Safeway parking lot. The teens have a hand in the programming. They provide counseling because we know how stressful it is to be a young person in our community, how much pressure there is to succeed. I think a community center could also provide support and incubation for local businesses and entrepreneurs in partnership with our Chamber of Commerce. We heard there's a demand for space for performing arts, especially for already established community organizations for music, theater, and dance. There's the idea of a thrift store run by a nonprofit that could bring revenue to the city or help fund additional programming. We've heard for affordable meeting space for nonprofits and community organizations, and expanded space for our senior programming run by IACS, which is very successful and has outgrown its space at Beaver Lake Lodge. Every time I attend that, there is so much joy in that room. It is wonderful, the community that has been built around there, and they deserve more space and for the programming to be more accessible.
Thank you. Mr. Amato?
Yeah, I think I'm really happy to be part of a community coalition that's kind of pushing to make this thing possible. In my ideal world, what this would be is a public-private partnership where we have a nonprofit who handles the day-to-day operations and takes that off the council's books. That nonprofit would have the ability to go get grants from a significant amount of sources, King County, for culture, a bunch of locations to help fund the capital expenses with the building. And then that nonprofit that handles the management would be able to work with the community to figure out which elements can actually go in the building and should serve our residents. I mean, we all have great ideas. I, of course, want the thrift shop because it can put money into human services, the teen centers. I mean, there's no shortage of great ideas here. It's how we get it done. And if I'm elected, one of the first things I plan to do, I think Lynn has the same idea, is to push this forward as quickly as possible. I'm an 80% solution kind of person. There are rooms in there that we can utilize right now. The building doesn't have to be perfect. A college just moved out. The building isn't falling down. We can use it and we can benefit the community with it today.
Thank you. We'll ask one more question from the audience, then we'll go into closing statements. So given the rise of federal anti-immigration sentiment and the increasing diversity of our Sammamish communities, what are your thoughts on what City Council could do to protect the immigrant residents of Sammamish and make them feel safe? So we'll start with Councilmember Howe, 1 minute.
I wish I could do something to make people feel safe. As it is today, trying to stay as informed as I can is about the best I can do, and to try to provide links to services. For example, the Circle in Issaquah is the best place that I can refer people to today. That is a safe way for them to connect and feel seen, heard, and safe, and get the best advice. And of course, there's the Northwest Immigration Law Services as well. So we've had residents taken from Sammamish, put into detention in Tacoma, and then deported. And we feel powerless here. I mean, I can rail against, my legislators, and they can't give me much. What we can do is we can set aside funds to give to the boots on the ground organizations to fund their services, to help supply these folks that are detained with a credit card so they can buy soap. So we can fund that.
Thank you. Mrs. Treen?
Yeah, this is just one of those shocking situations going on in the country right now, and it's horrifying. I believe in supporting the families that are left behind as much as we support the people who have been arrested. I think it's really important to work with our local police to be sure we're doing everything we can to give people heads up that something's going on and give them an opportunity to take action themselves. I can tell you, even though I'm not likely to be approached by ICE, one of the first things I did when the last election took place is get my Canadian passport. Maybe we could help people get other ways to get out of town and not be here when those kinds of raids take place. It is absolutely horrifying. My husband teaches at-risk kids, and they're at risk of having their families destroyed.
Thank you. Councilmember Lamb?
So I think it's really important to support our immigrant community. We follow state law. We don't in any way go beyond that in helping ICE. I think it's important for us and as residents to understand what to do if they are approached by ICE. And I think to that end, I think it would be a good idea for our city to offer that information. I think it's important that we stay connected with our state representatives and our Congresswoman Schreier, so that when we hear of things happening, that we have like a direct line to them.
Thank you. Councilmember Gupta?
Yeah, this is scary. There was a story of a gentleman in Bellevue who was taken and who was a Microsoft executive, and his family couldn't find him for multiple days, right? I know it feels like we might be up on a hill a little bit, but this is affecting all of our communities. And I'm really proud that the council passed a resolution earlier this year supporting our immigrant community. I'm also really pleased by the messaging from King County Sheriff stating they will not deport undocumented immigrants. They will not ask about a person's citizenship or immigration status during routine interaction or at community events. And they will also support the Keep Washington Working Act, right? So I think it's great that we have support from our state and regional officials. I know it is sometimes challenging to trust the police, but I'm glad to know that we do have their support here. I know the library has King County Library System has also been putting together citizens' rights packets. So if you are concerned, if you feel like you want more information, they're a great resource. Also, reach out to the city. We might not have answers, but we can put you in touch with people who do.
Mr. Amato.
Yeah, this is an exceptionally awful situation. I don't think people realize that this is what they were voting for. This is not okay. My wife works in HR in tech, and I hear from her everyday stories of people on visas having challenges. And it's not just with ICE, of course, that's awful, but every time the president sends out some bleat about immigration, it freaks people out. And we've got a lot of people in Sammamish who are scared to death about what's going to happen to them or their family members. And that's not a place where we should be. I think Sid's idea about having a resource available on the city website or others so people can go and even begin to figure out what they need to do is an excellent idea. I have a lot of faith in Governor Ferguson. He's shown that he's taken on Trump before, and I know he will again. And whichever candidate is elected to be King County Executive will keep going with our sheriff's policy that someone mentioned before, which I think is excellent. Very limited amount that we can do on the council except be supportive and raise issues to those elected in positions above us that deal more directly with the situation. I empathize and I wish I could do more.
Thank you. Lastly, Mr. Yang.
Yeah, I actually think there's a lot the council can do to actually beat the drum on the issue, right? I would actually, and I hope my if I was elected, my council members would be with me. I would actually do a press conference every time somebody from our community is taken or has faced issues and bang that drum. And I would want to hope that my council members will stand with me, right? I think the best thing we can do is just show how diverse our community is and how together we are on this singular issue, right? And to support our immigrant community and individuals and families, not only by telling their stories, but also sharing with the community how they can help, right? And on this issue, on other issues. And we're also very lucky in our community to have a community newspaper, the Sammamish Independent, right? And so if the Seattle Times is not covering, someone in our community, I can guarantee that the Sammamish Independent will. And that will allow the stories to spread and the advocacy to be stronger at the state level and the federal level with our representatives and our state officials. So I think we as a community can bang the drum as loud as possible if this hits our community, and I can promise you I will.
Okay, thank you. We're almost at the end, so I think it's time for maybe our 1 minute closing pitch. So perhaps a brief statement from each of you on why voters should choose you for Sammamish City Council. And we'll start with Mrs. Treen. 1 minute.
Thank you. I actually have nothing prepared for this, so I am going to just speak from the top of my head. I chose to run when I saw the council designate $11 million to fund 6th Street for the town center developer, and then designate 4.3 million from our park acquisition fund for a town square that when questioned about how it would be used, no one on the council could answer the question. When the last straw was the 6% utility tax. And I couldn't just sit at home and watch it happen. I want to have a role on the council and become an alternative voice to the 6-1 that continually rules this city. It's time for us to have diversity on our council, not racial diversity, diversity in thought. And that is what I will bring.
Thank you. Councilmember Howe.
If you re-elect me back to the council, I will continue to prioritize the community needs, which happen to be more housing options so that residents can downsize and so workers and young families can thrive. I will continue to push for more transit. I'll continue to strengthen my partnerships, which are already very strong with our state legislators, to help secure more grants, like I did with getting assistance with the bomb cyclone and disaster relief. And I'll continue to pursue progressive revenue options to ensure reliable, high quality public services without having to rely on the backs of our residents with their property taxes. You know, we're a smart community and we are very capable of figuring stuff out. Even the thorniest issues we can work on together. So I believe in listening and collaborating, pulling together to find solutions that are real, that are actionable and measurable. So I'm looking forward to serving another term in this great city. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time so far. It's been a great job. And I recommend it to anybody who's interested. Thank you.
Councilmember Gupta.
Again, thank you so much to APIC for hosting this forum, and thank you to the community for your time and engagement. Elections are at their core about shared values. I'll share mine. Environmental preservation, financial sustainability, more amenities, less congestion, more sustainability, quality education, pristine parkland, public safety as we are yet again the safest city in Washington. More options for our community, whether that's places we can live, the ways we get around, the ways we recreate, or the ways we support each other. I think these values are reflected in my endorsements, including Washington Conservation Action, Sierra Club Washington, Washington Bikes, and dozens of local and regional elected officials and community leaders. I think that makes a difference because as we answer the question of how we face these challenges that, to be clear, are not ours alone, do we work with our regional neighbors and partners, or do we insist that we are better off alone? We are fortunate to live here. If Sammamish is strong, then we are even stronger as the East Side, and as King County, and as the state of Washington. And those values are important because they help guide us to the outcome we all want: a better, more sustainable, inclusive, responsible, and thriving community. Our diversity is our strength. Let's be stronger together. Again, I'm Sid. Thank you for your support.
Thank you. Mr. Amato.
Thank you very much for hosting. You've done an excellent job moderating this discussion. And thank you everyone who's listening right now and will be sometime in the future as you're trying to make up your mind about who to vote for. I think one of the fun things about this forum for me is seeing the interactions between those of us that have been talking and having different ideas. And I think having that on the dais would be exceptionally beneficial to our residents so they can have all of their voices heard and positions represented when every issue or nearly every issue is a 6-1 or 7-0 vote. I don't think our residents are being properly represented. So I'm running because I think that government should be delivering results for the residents, for the people who live here. And if I'm elected, that's what I'm going to work every day to do for you. You can reach out to me on my cell phone, 253-722-9089.
Thank you. Councilmember Lamb.
I want to thank APIC for hosting, and I also want to thank the community residents that have come and are watching this evening. I see some familiar names here up on the screen. I just want to read our city vision statement from our comprehensive plan as my closing. And that is, in 2024, Sammamish is a regional model for an equitable and sustainable community in harmony with nature, featuring beautiful natural surroundings, a vibrant park system, lively mixed-use centers, connected neighborhoods, thriving local businesses, and active cultural scenes. Sammamish is a beloved place to live, work, and visit. I am committed to that vision statement, and together as a community, we can honor our natural environment, we can support inclusive growth in the town center, and we can foster the meaningful connections that make Sammamish a truly exceptional place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Yang, grand finale.
Yeah, very interesting. I convinced my wife to move back to my hometown, and I sold it to her as this is the great place to live. It's the wealthiest community, a small town in America. But then when she got here, she was like, "Why aren't there any restaurants here? Why are there no sidewalks and crosswalks? Why is there no good bus service?" And I didn't have a good answer for her, right? And I made me realize our community has so many gaps, right? For our kids, their best place to hang out is Chipotle, and that's sad, right? We don't have any place that's walkable for our seniors. We don't have good transit service for people to get around if they don't drive. And a huge proportion of our city, including our youth and some of our seniors, don't drive, right? So our city isn't designed for everyone. And we're a city that if we don't fit a mold, it's basically not structured to welcome you here. And a lot of people move with their feet. And I want to change that, right? I think our city can be so much better, and it can be improved than what it is now. And I'm committed to doing that to make our city inclusive to all the residents here. And so that's something that I really want to do. I want to get my wife's vote of confidence, and I want to give my children who are age 6 and 4, just a more thriving city to grow up in.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. On behalf of the Eastern County Asian and Pacific Islander Coalition, we deeply appreciate all of you for spending your evening with us. Audience members, thank you for your participation. If you have any follow-up questions you would like to ask the candidates, please check their websites and see their upcoming events. I'm sure they'd be happy to meet with you and answer your questions. A quick reminder to everyone that Election Day is November 4th and early voting begins on October 17th. So please make sure your voice is heard. Thank you, everyone, again, and have a great night.
Thanks, Ashwin. Thanks for having
Thank
us.
you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. It was a
guys.
wonderful evening.